And we are live once again. Everybody knows every Tuesday at 8, it's time for another exciting edition of the MCW Cast. I'm Legacy MCW announcer Larry Legend.
I'm MCW promoter Dan McDevitt.
And I'm Tara. Welcome to the cast.
Yes, welcome everyone once again. And just at the top of the cast, want to take a moment. I don't think we mentioned this in previous episodes, but I lost a great one. Someone that we know, we were very familiar with right here in the MCW community. Beautiful Bobby Eaton passing away earlier this month. And yeah, I just want to, as is tradition, we do the 10 bell salute. We can't do that here on the cast, but we definitely can acknowledge. And, since the infancy of the cast, we've taken a lot of time out just to acknowledge some of the stars that are close to MCW and maybe not from far away that passed away. So not to really start off on a somber note, but wanted to just give a huge shout out and our condolences to the family and friends and the entire wrestling community for the passing of both Beautiful Bobby and Jody Hamilton, the masked assassin.
Yeah, who was a behind-the-scenes guy in WCW for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And Bobby Eaton, an interesting thing you got to almost point out is the wrestling business is full of shady characters. We all know. And, some good, some bad. But Beautiful Bobby Eaton is one of the rare guys that you could look for days. You could look on social media. You will never find one bad word from anybody in the business about that guy. It was a couple people pointed that out, like how he was a guy that was universally loved. Like you've never heard anybody say a cross word about him, a bad word about him. He was just a guy that everybody that came in contact with him through his 40-year career just absolutely loved him as a human being.
And I can attest to that, Dan. One of the first assignments you gave me before I was an announcer, while Steve Vinarella was still around, Tara, I think it was the night that you fought Sensational Sherry at Michael's 8th Avenue. Now, for those of you that don't know, promoters often have a lot of hands that can just go get this guy from the airport, go take this guy to the hotel. My assignment, I was Beautiful Bobby Eaton's handler that night, sort of just
that he came in for the match with Ricky Morton.
That's right, yeah. Right. And it was a wild night. And I just remember the entirety of the time that I was with him. I really couldn't make out much of what he was saying. He kind of had like a Boomhauer Alabama accent.
Yeah.
He'd be like, "Hey man," and I'm like, "Whoa, what did you just say?"
He like mumbled a lot under his breath.
Yeah.
Talked real quiet.
That like Southern drawl.
Which is probably why you didn't ever see him do a lot of promos.
Good call, yeah.
Probably. But he did his talking in the ring. It's just amazing talent.
Some of the best strikes, and I mean, just, punches. I went and took a look at this tape that I'd gotten from the old Bone Breakers called Best of Memphis. Just a 12-hour tape of nothing but old stuff. And there's, I was just looking at his strikes. They did like one of those music videos Jerry Lawler used to do with, pop music of the time, like, like a montage of just Bobby Eaton doing his things. And I was looking at those strikes and I was like, wow, you don't see anyone strike like that anymore these days. That Southern kind of Memphis Lawler strike that just looked like he was really powing the guy in the mouth.
And if you really want to get a feel on what he kind of meant to some people, I recommend the Jim Cornette podcast. It's
Something to wrestle about.
No, the Jim Cornette
drive-through.
Yeah. Jim Cornette's podcast. You can pull it up and go to that episode. Brutal.
I'm sure.
Really hard to listen to. Really hard to listen to. Jim, he lost it a lot. It was just but it was good. It was good. It was powerful, but I got choked up listening to it. And it was hard not to. You could tell how hurt Jim Cornette was.
Yeah.
So.
And Jody Hamilton, I'll tell you this much. I didn't know that much about Jody Hamilton, a little bit before my time, but I did know he was Nick Patrick, referee or WCW longtime referee. Nick Patrick, that was his father.
Oh, actually. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, Jody Hamilton was...
I did not know that.
Nick Patrick was the son of the masked assassin, Jody Hamilton.
I didn't know that.
So one fun fact, and I remember even in his waning years, he would come out and get himself involved around the Harley race time when Harley was Vader's manager. And I think he and Harley, like on some Clash of the Champions, used to tangle even in their like 60s.
It's funny they can't let go.
Yeah,
that's the draw of the business. Like it's hard to just let go. A lot of those guys.
Well, with the masked assassin, he had that foreign object, jammed up there in his mask, so he could still give a headbutt, into the early 90s, mid 90s, and it was effective. So yeah. But didn't want to start off with too somber of a note. But like I said, we can't really do the 10 bells, but we can always bring up the fallen fondly. And that's what we did here. And for all of our listeners and Coffee Cup subscribers, just once again, we want to thank you, as we kind of always start off the podcast, just thanking you for continuing to contribute and support us. And if you don't know, like and subscribe. I can rattle off all the
Are you going to do it? Are you going to take my job?
Well, I've never done it.
All right.
And
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Let's see you do it.
Well, you can hear us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, Castbox, YouTube, and Facebook Live for the streaming. And Twitch. And Twitch. Can't forget about Twitcher.
And if you're watching on any of the or listening on any of the podcast platforms, make sure to subscribe, because it helps us out on all those platforms.
Yes, indeed.
And if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, make sure you share the feed.
All right.
Speaking of YouTube, what was the Flashback Friday? Was a real doozy.
This is a great one. So this takes you back to Shamrock Cup 2010, and we have Ruckus versus Rich Swan.
Wow. Talk about two
Two Baltimore guys.
Yeah, two Baltimore staples.
Mm-hmm. And a little bit of deja vu, too, actually.
That's right, because our guest, the last guest we had, James Ellsworth, actually, when we talked about his promotion that runs in the Pasadena, Bel Air area, they're running that match back.
Right.
So Ruckus and Rich Swan, we had them in 2010. They're still going strong in 2021. Yeah.
Right.
Right in the Baltimore area. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But watch it the first time that it happened, or one of the first times I think that it happened, right here in MCW. It's a great match, kind of like, student mentor, with Richie starting out in the York, Baltimore area, and Ruckus being established and bringing him on. And here's one of the chances that they had to showcase what they'd learned and taught each other, and heck of a match. So
I actually did not get to see that. That was one of the rare shows that I missed.
You missed something?
I did, because I had a baby.
That's right.
2 months before.
That's right.
Yeah,
so yeah, you only take time off to have kids.
No, actually, the other kid, I didn't take time off. But yeah, I had just had him, so I did miss that one.
And if you're watching for the Flashback Friday matches on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, because you also get all the notifications for the other content we're putting out, like MCW Breakthrough.
That's right.
Which we decided to continue on and do a monthly episode. So we got episode 4 coming up real soon for the month of August. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, and you'll get notifications on all that content as it's released.
That's right.
Yep. And something, subscribing is really the name of the game in this day and age that we live in. Several times I'll see that little, notification banner. I have a Mac fly out of the right side of the screen and let me know MCW just published something. It's going on live. Click right now. In addition to MCW, another streaming platform that we've talked about a lot right here on the cast, Iwtv, which I happen to be a subscriber of. Whenever there's a show that's being broadcast, pro wrestling or pro wrestling theme, you get a little banner that flies right out of the side to let you know, hey, this is going on right now live. If you want to go ahead and switch on over. Only way you can get those is by subscribing. So you don't want to miss out on anything that we've got coming down the pike, because you never know what you're going to see, including our guest for tonight's episode of the MCW Cast.
That's right. Why don't you introduce our guest before we go to break, Larry?
Well, I'll tell you, I mentioned IWTV, and it was a great segue, because tonight our guest stepping into the MCW studio, the Pan-African Diaspora World Champion, is recognized by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, now a dedicated world champion, Trish Adora, right here with us in the MCW studio.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
And we are back live in the studio, and as promised, current reigning Pan-African Diaspora World Champion Trish Adora, thank you for joining us here on the MCW Cast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Now, Larry, you have wanted to have Trish on the podcast for months, and I'm so glad that you finally got to have your chance to interview her, because you've been a fan, right? We all have, really.
Yes, and I have just been a fan, and we brought it up on the podcast a few times now, of kind of like the path that you're forging as an independent wrestler on today's scene. Even the Pan-African Diaspora World Championship, and I can call it a World Championship now, was just recently dedicated by Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So yeah, I think that you're definitely the type of person for our audience that we want to speak to, and what better representation? You train a lot of the time right here at the MCW Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find out about us as a place to kind of, work on things in between defending the championship?
Yeah, so I was originally training at the Ring of Honor dojo, and once the pandemic kind of kicked off, everything slowed down. So I was just kind of looking to settle up a little bit. So this space became available. So
You originally, where did you originally train at?
at Team 3D in Florida.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we know a lot about the Dudley Boyz. They've come through, come through many times.
Great. Yeah, Bubba and
Yeah,
Devon are
we've had
awesome.
other people from here go down and train there.
Mhm.
Jessie K or
Yeah.
Jessica Carr,
Yes.
as everybody knows her now, but we've certainly had other people go through there. Yeah.
So, I am just pleased as punch to have you. So I have got a lot of questions, and I'd love to kind of dictate the pace of where we go tonight. First things first, and we brought this up before. Obviously, everyone knows I go by the name Larry Legend, but your name was probably the first thing that kind of I noticed, that Trish Adora just has a ring to it, cuts glass. You remember it. So how did that come to be? Your worker name, Trish Adora. How'd you come up with that?
Yeah, it's my name.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's
Is
awesome.
that your real name?
Yeah, I'm
It's a
Patrice
great-
Adora, so my nickname is Trish. So Trish
Oh,
Adora.
wow.
That is so awesome.
It's a
You
great
were-
name.
You were
yeah.
expecting like some big story, right?
Well, yeah.
Really?
I mean,
I wouldn't have. I didn't suspect it was a real name. It's like a great
It
showmanship
is. It's
name.
like a made for
Yeah,
TV
made for
name,
wrestling,
really.
made
It
for TV name,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
and you know something,
That's
you can't
great.
you can't go wrong when you use your name.
No,
Yeah.
they
You
can't,
know?
take it, they can't take it away
I know.
from you.
Yeah.
That's true.
You
Someone
pretty
else
much-
can't trademark you. You know,
you
it's
were born
yours.
that way.
Well, I mean, they could, but
Yeah.
I
you
don't
can
think they have
trademark
any
it
luck.
first.
Yes.
Didn't they
That's
just try that on Chelsea Green?
Oh yeah, did they?
They did. Yeah, WWE.
They
They
tried
dropped
it on
it. Though.
different people.
I'm sure.
before.
Yeah.
She was talking about it on Twitter. They tried with it. They dropped it like really quickly. I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
Yeah,
You
no.
can't trade.
There's no
If that's
case
your own
for
name,
it.
I don't
Yeah,
think so.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I think. Because she was talking about it on Twitter, and then like a couple days later, she announced that WWE basically gave it up and said, I don't think they can. How can they You can. What are you supposed to do? Like you can't
Like,
acknowledge
you were
they own your real name. You can't.
So you'd have to go pick a new name.
Yeah, to be acknowledged on television or
Right.
something like that. I can't. What's your name? I can't tell you because I can't say it. You know, like it's
That is
weird.
was formerly known as.
I mean, it's like that Triple H theme song. It's all about the game and how you play it. If you ever listen to the lyrics, if you ever listen to every lyric of that song, it kind of is the blueprint for, being processed into WWE. You're going to change your name. You're going to die in flames. Oh, maybe not the die in flames part, but
That
I
took
mean-
a sharp turn very quickly.
Yeah,
We went from
that got
lose your
dark
name to
there.
die in a fiery blaze. Wow.
well, I mean,
Okay.
recommend-
But it doesn't work in reverse though, right? Because like some people, like I guess Ryback hasn't been anywhere, but like some people have actually changed their name. Well, Ultimate Warrior tried.
Yeah.
Like he tried to make his first name Ultimate, last name
he
Warrior.
changed it the Warrior.
Right,
the Warrior.
Yeah.
But WWE blocked him
Yeah.
legally
Right.
changing his name to Ultimate Warrior.
Right.
Like they were able to block it in courts. So like I guess if they give you a character name and they own the copyright to it, they can block
And that
you
makes
from-
sense. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like that's valid. Like, if they put money and time and merchandise into a character that they developed while you were there that you didn't use prior to coming there, I feel like
Yeah.
that's a valid case for, okay, fine, you kind of do own that name. But, like, if it was a name you were using on the indies and then you show up there, I don't really think they can. I mean, especially if it's your birth name.
Yeah, it goes all the way back to different instances in the entertainment industry. Even I remember Tina Turner as part of the Ike and Tina review when she got that divorce from Ike, and it was very messy. The one thing she fought the hardest for was that name, Tina Turner, because I fought very hard to be recognized
Did
as
Ike
Tina.
try to
Right.
keep it?
Oh, absolutely,
Did he
yeah,
really?
yeah. During the
Yeah.
divorce, and then he was Anime Bullock. You're Anime Bullock, which is her given name, but she had spent so much time as Tina Turner. But yeah, that Triple H song, it's all about the game. Sometimes
Now I gotta go
it's.
listen to it.
I highly recommend that you get yourself in the right frame of mind and listen to every lyric of that song. It's kind of telling,
All right. I'm going to message you at 1 a.m. when I'm in the right frame of mind.
and I'll be up.
I know. All right, we're going to have to talk about this later tonight around 1.
Okay, so can I continue?
Sure.
So, yeah, Trish Adora. How about this? Can you take us back to this journey has now taken you to the heights of being a recognized world champion? But when did that tournament happen? I remember there were several pieces of media that I kept coming across talking about this grand tournament to crown the first ever Pan-African Diaspora world champion. When did that happen? Was that like 2017?
It was February 2020 so February 2020 was the night that I won the championship.
But the tournament started a lot before then, like in
yes,
the
of course.
years before,
So-
right? It was
Just a few months prior.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess a few
everything
months.
seems so far away after that year.
So,
we had,
but a few
right?
months prior would have been like 2019. So my memory's foggy. I remember that it started, and then in the October of 2019, it's
Yes.
okay, and then into February of 2020,
Yes.
and that's when you won. And I remember seeing that footage, that GIF, that media going all around, and I mean, I thought it was kind of telling that a woman won the first ever Pan-African Diaspora World Championship. What kind of an honor was that, or did you?
Well, so that was really cool.
And you fought a man in the finals, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I was the only woman in the tournament.
That's
So, yeah, I was quite surrounded, but it was really nice being able to work at home, in front of my mom. My mom was there, so that was a really nice full circle moment. It's like, hey,
And where
this
is
what
home?
I've been.
Just to interject, where is
sorry,
home? That's
Washington,
okay.
D.C.
Okay. For our listeners who don't follow.
Fair
All
enough,
right.
yeah. So it was nice being able to like work in front of that crowd and just to work around my peers, in front of my friends and stuff like that. It was such a kismet moment. It was very, very nice. Quite honored.
Right on. And real quick there, before you interject, I want to get back to names. I remember, I think when I saw the end of that, the conclusion, your finishing maneuver definitely stuck out and rang bells in my ears. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lariat Tubman?
Yes.
Okay? And if you haven't seen Trish Adora throw it, okay, that Lariat Tubman is something to be seen. I mean, deep down from under Lariat, okay? But titled Lariat Tubman, which, I'd never heard of anything like that or thought to like kind of come up with that. So, you know, I kind of been rambling about all this stuff so far. How'd that come about? Did you create that finishing maneuver or?
Yeah, so I created the finish maneuver. Me and Faye Jackson were talking, and she's really quippy, and I'm very big on play on words. So I like having things either relate to something that other people would know, or maybe that'll endear them a little bit. So we were just sitting working together, and I was thinking like, freaking Lariat Tubman, and she's like, Lariat Tubman, and I'm like, Lariat Tubman, and we're like, Lariat Tubman.
That worked, especially considering that's the championship that you won, sort of an Afrocentric championship, a championship for the people, by the people, to be defended by the people all over the world. I just thought, you know, the story of Harriet Tubman leading so many to freedom and just blazing a path, you know, and now, you know, the first ever Pan-African Diaspora champion uses the Lariat Tubman as her finisher. So I just thought it was.
And in wrestling, creative things like that go so far. Go so far.
And
something
it's what people
remember.
Yeah,
people remember.
That's what you're looking for, is that hook that they walk away and they're still talking about it the next day and the day after that.
Making yourself different and stand out. It's things like that, those creative things like that make just such a huge difference.
Yes, indeed. Well, I've kind of monopolized most of this convo already because I was really excited to have you in here. But with our guests, Tara, if you want to take it to the beginning.
So you're fairly new to this business, correct? So you made your debut in
2016, September 2016.
Okay, so like 5 years.
5 years,
yeah.
That's coming.
And you have done a lot in 5 years. So what made you decide to get into wrestling?
Yeah, so I've always been a really big fan of wrestling. I have 5 brothers. I was the only girl, so it was really like rough and tough, and they were way into wrestling. So, you know, you just kind of sit and watch too, and half of it didn't really make sense, but, you know, you just kind of get excited over time. And then one day I saw Jacqueline, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
That's
that she
what
was
we want to hear.
right?
Yeah, that's what we want to hear.
I see you, you know, and to see her be so rough and tough and to still be feminine and to be spoken of so highly and very respectful. You know, I would just always notice how whenever, you know, she was in the ring, the commentary, it's just the lens that they viewed her under would change, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really dope that she was able to do both. And that was cool to see too, as like, you know, just a young girl growing up and, you know, just not really seeing that outside of my household, outside of looking at my own mom, you know. So when you see that outside on the TV, it's like, what? That's so cool.
Now, did your brothers have aspirations to get in the business?
No. No, I was throwing them around. I was too busy throwing them around.
What do they think about you doing it now, Leila?
They think it's so cool. I was kind of somewhat of the run of the litter growing up. So now it's kind of like, yeah, I'm the wrestler and I'm rough and tough. And so it's kind of cool. The family reunions and the get-togethers are really cool.
I'm sure they're bragging about you to all their friends.
Yeah, world traveled, world recognized, world champion of the family. So yeah.
We've had several guests on here that talk about that family connection when they were younger. Like it was for me too. You know, I watched wrestling with my family. I attended events with them and everything from the time I was like in utero. So like it was a bonding experience, you know. Nobody was shocked when I went into the business either. So, you know, it's kind of like, well, that took you a while, but none of us thought that you weren't going to do that. So that's neat to hear that you had the support of your family.
I love that you brought up Jackie Moore. Jackie Moore, to me, was like one of the fiercest fighting women in WWF during the time that she was on TV. And I just remember that even as things started to kind of transition to that, you know, BB, Miss Kitty, you know, kind of that era, there was still like your Molly, there was still your Ivory, there was still your Jackie. And,
I think of those three together when I think back on that period.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And the matches. And sometimes it would be a scramble where they only got to do like one spot each, you know, and then powder out. But, you know, it's Jackie Moore was one of the fiercest fighters and also one of the women that was known for fighting men early on in her career down in USWA.
I was gonna say you talk about Beautiful Bobby like at the beginning of this show, like Jackie's another one because I've been around 30 years now, like, you know, so 91. So wow,
I know.
So going back then to when I like she's another one like Beautiful Bobby that is just you never heard a bad word, just the amount of respect that she had just over the years. And when I was young in the business, you always heard about Jackie, just spoken with with such respect, and so well respected for everyone in the business.
Yeah, Hall of Famer now. And
Yeah.
wasn't she one of the original trainers on Tough Enough when was it the second? Was it first season or?
Yeah.
Well, she was one of the original trainers. I just remember, and just as fierce as she was, on her appearances in WWF on TV and pay-per-views. I remember she was one of the harder trainers with Al Snow and
she was
Taz.
wrestling men in Memphis,
Yes.
right back in Memphis, in USWA and all that, in those territories, right?
Yeah, and one of the first times that I can remember an intergender match on TV, it was before Jeff Jarrett fought China at the pay-per-view, the infamous pay-per-view where he held Vince up for $250,000 or whatever the amount was. But they had him do a warm-up match with Jackie just to show China what you're going to get when you get in and he laid into her. It was like one of the most vicious things I'd ever seen. But they know each other.
They're real tight.
They know
They
each other from
Memphis.
way back
Yeah.
in Memphis days. So this was just like, you remember how we did it down there? We're just gonna do it on a larger scale up here. But yeah, Jackie Moore. I love me some Jackie too. And I guess where I'm going with all of this is you were also known for fighting. You have had a lot of intergender bouts with men. Is that I don't want to say is that a preference, but is that something that just is you're kind of being known for? I mean, we're gonna get into some of the matches you had. I don't want to spoil it, but like, how does that how's that feel for you to be, kind of, I mean, in some instances beaten really, really viciously by, I'll just throw it out there, a white man. Like, I remember feeling a little, uncomfortable at some of the imagery, especially from the Iron Person match. Deppin's a real hooker. And what I mean by that about, his style and, he was just beaten up on you, and the imagery kind of was a little disturbing to me. At some point. So does that ever resonate with you when you accept like a Darius Carter or a Tony Deppin or?
Well, so I'm pretty big on optics, and I try to keep that in mind. And so I try not to. I want to word this, as diplomatically as possible.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying not to have things appear a certain way that would turn off a larger audience, so to speak. There are some intergender wrestling detractors, and in my opinion, I believe the tough work is on me then to make sure that my psychology is sound as possible, and nobody can look at this and say, oh, this is domestic violence. So this is it's like, it's not. I signed up to do this. I didn't just show up here in this interesting outfit and this guy just beat me up. That's not how this happened. I promise it's not. So just trying to make sure that, my psychology, I'm just always keeping that in mind. I never want the optics to look too bad, and especially, too, it was one of the first times my mom saw me wrestle, and I'll maybe have to find the director's cut, but she got up and was ready to involve herself in the match. I had to cut that part out.
What that
like,
Iron Person match?
Or not the Iron.
Oh, when you won
excuse me.
the won the championship.
Yes,
gotcha.
when I won the championship.
Both against men. These are both male on female matches with a title at stake. So
yeah, my mom was not having it. I had to explain to her afterwards. I'm like, hey, everything's cool. I know that looked crazy, but
Yeah.
So.
yeah, I just, just going back, we talked about it on the cast before it happened on Valentine's Day, and just talking about how it all came together. Well, I think Deppin just tweeted out, I want to wrestle a woman for an hour, or I want to wrestle an Iron Man match, and you were like, I'm game.
So this match got put together on Twitter, right? Is
Yeah,
that
it
how
happened on Twitter, right?
Organically on Twitter. I thought it was one of the most amazing things I'd seen.
And you're a fan of Twitter, and I am not. So that was what he's explaining this to me, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. I still don't want to use Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe how that all happened too, because he cast out the net, and I'm just scrolling. I saw that, and I was like, let me say something. I don't know. Maybe nothing will happen.
Yeah.
And so I was like, me. And then, he liked that, and then he sent that off. And then PWI saw his tweet and then grabbed that and sent it off and said, we'll sponsor the match. And I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I got myself into now. Yeah.
What did I do?
And then Beyond Wrestling saw that and was like, all right, you can house it here. And I'm like, oh. Shoot.
All within the span of like an hour.
Like it's happened like over the course of like one full day, because they reached out and they're like, yeah, we want to do this in like a week and a half. And I'm like, oh, okay. I I was like, yeah, I'll be right there.
Wow, that just puts things in perspective. It felt like an hour, but maybe that was just me like scrolling and seeing like but it took a whole day to get put together.
Was that during the shutdown?
Yeah, it was. Right.
Well,
I was just going to say that was when there weren't a lot of shows happening anyway.
Right.
And you were seeing these things that were on the internet only shows because most places couldn't have live, audiences. So, yeah, it was definitely during that.
It was magic is what it was.
It
Right.
seems like very serendipitous. Everything fell into place the way it was supposed to.
Such a thing too. And Beyond was saying like we want to do this for a charitable cause, so you can each pick a charity that's close to you. And I picked the Harriet Tubman's Women's Shelter. My mom used to work there, so
right on.
I was like, all right, let's do something for them. And so there was just so much happening, and it was going to be streamed live to Iwtv, and it was the only match that day. So me and him were just in this empty place, and it's just like getting ready separately, and I'm just like, oh my God. Nobody's around to like say anything. Nobody's around to like, it was just, there are no fans there.
Right.
It was just a straight taping, and it was just
Had you worked that style before with no audience whatsoever for that long of a time period? Like, I'm just trying to picture it.
The entire thing was brand new to me. I hadn't even met Tony Deppen in person before.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't worked for Beyond. As far as my involvement with Iwtv, it was in its infancy at that point. There was a lot of first, and I was almost a little swallowed up by the moment, but thankfully I was able to pull out the victory at like the last 2 seconds.
It was a great match. I watched every second of it. I think I had to work for the first part of Valentine's Day, but I got home just to catch it mid match, and it was awesome. I just remember there was so much smacking, and so much like grunting and moans of pain from you on Valentine's Day. You know what I mean? Like, and then that goes right back to what this is what I mean. What you mentioned about optics and like me as a fan, I'm a big fan of Deppen, and I'm a big fan of yours. I was kind of emotionally invested in the narrative that was going on beyond the fact that it had all come together. But what was the outcome of this going to be? Because I also was going to be quite upset if Deppen won the belt, just to be markish about it. But if Tony Deppen from Hershey, PA beat you for the Pan-African.
Well, for Pan-Am wasn't on the line.
Okay.
So that was just as is. I mean, that would have been even more.
Right.
Gosh, I'm like, I could not get even more stressed out. So
well, even if he still just beat you, if it wasn't for the belt, I would have been like, I about this, what's going on here. But
I like that.
Yeah. We want to talk to you about a couple other things. We do need to pause for internet station identification. So fans, stay with us. We're going to be right back with our special guest this week, Trish Adora.
Show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. You can pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Visit teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
All right, we are back with Trish Adora. So we were talking about the monumental match that you had, and I want to go a little bit further back. Before that, you actually made a NXT debut in 2018, right?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got to that and what happened?
Yeah, so at the time I was just training at Team 3D Academy in Kissimmee, Florida.
Okay.
And Jessica Carr, she hit me up and was like, hey, I want to use your number for some extra work. And I was like, yeah, okay, if they have something, that would be great. And if they could, you know what I mean? I wasn't sure,
Sure.
Whatever, I'm down for the ride. And so the next day she was like, all right, so we'll have you set up. We'll have you come in a few times and have everything set up. So I came backstage for extra work maybe 2 or 3 times before I actually had a match. And overall, the experience was pretty lovely. Everybody was relatively friendly. Nobody made me feel like I was in their way. So that felt like a victory in itself. And being able to work with Kairi Sane was very, very nice. She was very congratulatory, very nice, and just willing to willing to just work with me, and which is interesting. You know, at that stage, I didn't imagine it to be like that. So it was very refreshing that, you know, she just kind of held my hand. It was very nice and just had a little layer of protection over me. So very nice of her. So
great.
That's awesome. Well, we know Jessica Cricks very well, homegrown from the Maryland area as well.
She was Jessie K when she was here a few years back, and then went down there and found lots of great success. Another female trailblazer, becoming, you know, the first full-time WWE referee. That's a female. So, yeah.
She's amazing. We train together at Team 3D, and ever so often we'll message each other online, and we'll be like, "Hey, girl."
Yeah, she's a fan of the cast. She's a fan of the cast. She watches.
Yeah,
so
Jessie's great.
yeah, we love her.
We love her here. So when were you living down in Florida and you ended up training at the Team 3D Academy, or did you move from DC down there specifically to train?
Yeah, so I moved from DC specifically to train. Once I had kind of gotten my marching orders, and I was like, all right, I'm done with my Army service, I packed up everything, and I had about $2,000 to my name. And I drove all the way down to Florida, and I was like, I'm going to be a wrestler.
I love it.
And then 3 days later, I had no money, and I couldn't sign up for the school that I wanted to go to, which wasn't Team 3D originally anyway. So I was struck out for like a couple of months trying to figure myself out. I got a job, and one of the first couple of days, and they're like, everybody introduce yourself, you know, tell us one fun fact about you. And the one girl said she was a wrestler, and I'm like, what? Where are you training at? And she says Team 3D Academy. And I go, no way. Bubba and D-Von have a school? She's like, yeah, I'll take you there. And I was like, no way.
Oh, wow. So you moved there not even intending to go to school there.
Nope. I was going to go somewhere else that was actually more expensive anyway. So it really all worked out in such a hilarious way.
But did you head to Florida because that's where like NXT was and WWE, and that's kind of where the hub is?
Yes. Very much a wrestling hub.
Right. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will train elsewhere first and then migrate to Florida, but that was your first foray into it?
Yeah.
But, you know, here it shows that kind of passion and desire
Tenacity.
is so rare. Tenacity,
Like, kind of reminds me of, like, the
Orlando Jordan.
Lita story
Lita?
going to Mexico.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She just showed up and I want to be
Figure
a
it
wrestler.
out.
You know? Like it has that kind of similar quality.
I feel like that's part of Leo's journey too, where he just went down to the performance center and showed up and was like, I'm here.
But even Leo and Patrick, when they were training here, we found out they would like hitchhike up here from like DC, and they told me because they were young.
Yeah.
You know, and then we said like they'd get here really early, and I'd say they were like, they told me like they hitchhike, and I was like, my God, you know what I mean? Like you don't see that a lot with a lot of, but you know what? Anybody that I've ever seen with that tenacity always ends up making it. When you have that much of a desire to do it, that you're willing to just pack up and go, and you know, and not look back, you usually end up making it really far.
And I think it's tied to this like strong connection to yourself and your confidence in yourself and knowing you can do it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah. There was the drive down, and I was like, oh no.
Like, what am I doing?
Right.
I was like, it's not too late. Once I get past South Carolina, I guess I gotta stay. But
Yeah.
it was just, I don't know. I was a little on the prideful side, and I just couldn't go back. I couldn't go back home.
Right.
I mean, you know, I'd made I was waiting tables at the time, and I was like, I am leaving. I'm going to go be a wrestler. I will be in Florida. I will see you later. You know, it was such a thing. I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. I can't come back without.
True. I didn't go to Florida, but I left my waitressing job because I was like, I'm going to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I had to go get another restaurant job. So.
Now you had another restaurant, like, I'm going to go be a wrestler.
I am a wrestler, but I'm also still a waitress. Okay, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, that tenacity. Remember John Liccato slept outside of Bone Breakers when he moved out from Minnesota or wherever
Orlando Jordan.
Yeah, just slept in their cars.
Orlando Jordan. Do you remember Orlando?
I do know of Orlando.
He was United States champion. He was with JBL.
The last person to wrestle the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, he was. He
and
was
he's
with
from
JBL.
DMV area too, wasn't he? From Virginia or
from Richmond. He packed
yeah.
up, and I didn't even realize it till like 2 weeks later. He came and he paid all his money, and then he would always James Lito. That was that era when they were all training. And I said, Orlando, like, I get here like 2 hours early. Like, you don't have to get here. Like, it's crazy. You get here so early. Are you that motivated? And he said, no, I'm sleeping. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm sleeping. I'm like, in your car? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, where are you? You're living in your car? And he's like, and I knew he had got a waitering job at TGI Fridays, right? And I was like, well, you don't have any, how come you don't have anywhere to live? And he said, I gave you all my money. Yeah. And I was like,
you're like,
what?
Yeah. Right? You know, like,
I was like, I mean, come on. I helped him out. You know what I mean? But I was just like blown away. He took all the money he had, signed up at our wrestling school, and lived in his car for a couple weeks, and he saved up money and got some money together waiting tables, and then got an apartment and got himself on his feet. But I was just like, I was blown away, you know. But yeah, he lived in the parking lot of Bone Breakers for.
Well, sometimes I find in life when you don't have a plan B, you don't have a way out, you prove your best results, because it's like, listen, I'm tunnel visioned, I'm doing this.
Yeah,
and also and the pride too.
Yeah.
You don't want to go home like, well, I tried, but I'm back. You know.
All right, so you didn't live in your car, right? Once you got to Florida.
Well, you know, I did a small amount of
Okay.
couch surfing, but
Right.
nothing, you know, no car sleeping.
Okay.
Well, it does happen, and we've seen it happen
Certainly
several
does.
times.
So you trained down at Team 3D.
Mhm.
Was there anybody there that really took you under their wing and, you know, really was a role model and helped you out?
Yeah, I would say Jessica Carr. You know, she was maybe at the school for like I feel like almost a year before I had even gotten there, but she was very, very kind, you know, and I was kind of in a class all by myself. And then a few months later, a group of people joined. So I was kind of just on an island. So she kind of grabbed me by the hand, which was very, very kind of her. Also, Serpentico, he was very, very kind. Just trying to help me navigate the indies at that early stage of my
Right.
career, which is extremely difficult. And I don't know, he worked with me. He would wrestle me on shows. He would try to get me paid, you know, a promoter, you know, stiffed me a little bit of money, and he would go right over there and be like, hey, give her stuff. And I'm just like, you know, to have somebody go to bat for you like that and to be an advocate for you feels really nice. So they definitely helped me build my confidence for sure.
And it is a business just in general when you get going in it that's really difficult to kind of navigate.
It really, really is.
But-
Those lessons learned.
Jessica will be one of those people that go down in that category that no one ever had a bad word to say about her.
Right.
So, you know, she's an incredibly kind person.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm sorry if I'm ignorant. Or Serpentico, did they go by another name before the Serpentico time? Is that Ophidian?
John Cruz.
Ah, okay. Oh, okay. So we know him. Los Pendejos.
Yeah.
Los Pendejos.
Yeah.
You know, we brought them through a couple times.
I love those guys.
Yeah, right on. Okay.
I didn't know he was going by something else now.
I had heard that, but I always get it confused because Ophidian Cobra is a serpent. Did the serpent snake mask and everything. But yes, that's right. Yeah, Los Pendejos.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. They were fun every time we had them come through for Shamrock Cups or whatever.
Now, you mentioned your time in the service.
Yes.
How long were you in the service?
For 8 years total.
And you were in Afghanistan?
Yes, in 2012.
How long were you there?
For 1 year.
That's with obviously a lot of stuff, worldly news happening.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What's your opinion on that? It's kind of
if things can come to a peaceful resolution and as few lives are lost as possible, then I'm happy with that.
right.
I think that's what everyone's actually
Yeah,
saying,
that's-
honestly, like.
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like that was what was sold to everybody for 20 years, like, oh, we'll
Yeah.
just stay a little longer and then it'll be a peaceful transition. And, I think, that just became evident that wasn't probably going to happen.
Would you have
in the way that
suspected that
people
things
thought.
fell apart that quickly, like being over there?
I was gonna say, well, my knee-jerk answer is yeah.
Really?
My knee-jerk answer is yeah.
It seems like a lot because I was never in the military. I got a lot of respect in the military, for the military. But it seems like most people in the military have kind of had that reaction, like, yeah, they're not surprised. People that served over there.
Yeah, I think that some things get mishandled. Very important things that should not be mishandled. Things that you should take a step to stop and think about all avenues. And they just get mishandled, and then lives get lost and people get hurt. And then here we go.
Scary. It's scary watching all that.
It really was.
A lot to take in.
I kind of have to pick and choose which news that I even digest in this day and age, because some of it is just so far leaning one way or the other, and I'm like, you're not really giving me the story, you're just giving me some emotion to feed my rage,
right?
And that's really not where you need to be. That's not the headspace that you need to be in.
That's why with stuff like that, I'll go to like independent news. I don't go to like one of the major cable, because they're always whether it's Fox or CNN, it's pitching a narrative. It's Biden's fault or it's Trump's fault, or that's why I went to like independent news, and like the guy Jocko, that's a Navy SEAL. That I listened to his take on it and everything, and like I went to just independent. Because I just thought, wow, was so just seeing those images was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and like I kind of didn't follow any news or social media all weekend. I was busy doing other stuff, and then Monday, a friend of mine messaged me and was like, "Did your friend get out of Qatar?" And I was like, "Why? What's going on in the Middle East?" And then I was like, "Oh, let's look at the news." And I went, "Holy crap!" Like, okay, that wasn't what I thought. Like, I mean, because they had said, pull out the troops. I mean, we've heard that for 20 years, literally. And then I was like, wait, what happened? And, just literally, I took like a 2-day break. And then, all of this. And I was like, my friend's home. Thank goodness. But I was kind of surprised by the swiftness of it. And I'm sure having been there, it must be something to watch. Wow.
Yeah. So are you out? You're out of the military for good?
Yes.
No, you're out.
Yes.
So you didn't begin your wrestling career until after that phase of your life was
right.
over?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I joined right out of college. I went to college for a year. Wasn't for me. Started waiting tables again. One of my coworkers was like, "Hey, you want to join the military?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "What are you talking?" I don't even know what that. I couldn't even understand what that even meant. But you asked a couple more times, and then pretty soon I was talking to a recruiter, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
They start selling you. They're like, "We'll give you a $20,000 bonus. We're gonna, give you some help with your college tuition." And I heard that, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
I almost did it as well. I was my mom and I were just talking about this the other day. I had met with a recruiter in high school as well. He was selling me on it, had me take the ASVAB test. I scored great apparently and qualified for like every job. So they're like, they really want you then. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to join the Air Force. And my mom's like, what? Like, where did that come from? And it was, I graduated high school when the Gulf War started, and it was just a brief war, but that was enough for me. I was like, oh, this was cool till I thought there was an actual war. Like, we had been peaceful for like 30 years at this point or whatever. So I was like, oh, sure, I'll join the Air Force, because like you said, they sell you on it, like, and I felt really special because they're like, oh, you scored really high on this, and then it's like they make you feel super important, and I hated school, so I was unless it was art class or English class, but so they get you and they hook you, and then I was a big chicken, and I was like, oh, I don't actually want to like go to war. Like, I have lots of respect for people who are out there doing that, but like I'm not that person, so I bailed out of it. But I remember the recruiter conversations very, very vividly.
Yeah, the only branch for me would be the Navy, where you can join your fellow man.
Yeah.
I can't.
The Navy.
I just said that in my head. I was literally like, in the Navy. I didn't want to say that.
I'm like you, Tara. I was too afraid to actually, like, of a conflict actually did break out.
Right.
Just like with wrestling, I was actually too afraid to learn, like, to get myself in shape. So I was like, I just want to help out with something. I don't really want to take bumps.
I remember that though at Bone Breakers, that everybody trying to get you into the ring to take bumps. Like, I remember this. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that was because we saw, like, I remember seeing, that's I talked you into stuff. You just had that natural charisma. And you were like, like back then, and you didn't want to do any. And I'm like, dude. And then when you started announcing, well, you remember me talking to you when you started announcing, and you did Was it that you did Nell Carter?
Because she had just passed away.
Yeah, so like I can't remember what, but I remember like you did something and people responded.
Yeah, at
at
intermission, I sang the theme song.
I mean, sometimes, man, you just had that gift to make people react, and I was like, dude, you got to do this because like you have a charisma, you're making people react, but if you're gonna get heat, there's eventually got to be a payoff.
There's got to be some comeuppance, which is when I learned that. Yeah,
you know what I mean? So you gotta. We can get you heat, but I can't just have you. I can't have you crap on the people always.
Always,
you gotta eventually.
Yeah,
you gotta eventually give them something. So you got to do this, like you know what I mean. And then, but I think you eased up on it when you started. You kind of got the bite when you started getting heat and reacting.
I think RJ's really the one who kind of like was like, "Come on, kid, let's get in here and roll around," you know, and like. Then that's what it was, and I was like, you know,
we had Brent in there, Ty in there. I mean, like,
you exposed your natural charisma. That if you wouldn't have done it, you would have just stayed as a backstage guy.
He'd have been heat sealing those.
Yeah, he'd have been sealing envelopes and stuff. But
all the newsletters forever.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember like, holy crap, man, this guy's got charisma. Like Larry's got some charisma.
So I kind of fell into the military of wrestling. But yeah, I was like you.
Well, I wanted to ask you, so when you started training at Team 3D, like we've talked before on the show about just how tough training is. Did your Army experience prepare you for the type of training? Like, I know when I started training, it felt like what I imagined boot camp to feel like. It's a kinder, gentler version now, but 20 years ago it wasn't. So was that your experience as well?
Yeah, I think that mentally and like emotionally, that's definitely helped. So with the whole like them yelling and like the make sure you can do it again, and sometimes you can kind of get in your own head when you're training, and you know there's 2 Hall of Famers, and you know Bubba has this presence that would just take up an entire room, you know, and you just try not to get so swallowed up in that as a trainee, and you're trying to do everything right, and you're just kind of freezed up, you know, a little bit. So being mentally tough is just kind of helped me not have that shake me too much. I was very happy to have that. So that was kind of the biggest. It was such a. I was very surprised at how like much emotional and mental and like psychological things were aside from physically. I mean, the physical training was pretty rough too.
Yeah,
it was pretty rough too, but I felt prepared at least emotionally.
That's good. Well, I mean, we always say you have to have really thick skin to survive this business. Yes. So it would seem that your military experience probably prepped you for a little bit of that thick skin.
Yes.
You know. Good. All right. Well, we're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about some other things that you've done in your career.
I want to talk about that shirt you're wearing.
I know.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about.
All right. So stay with us and we'll be right back.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast, and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
All right, and we are back. One of the things I wanted to ask you about at the time of this, we're currently in the midst of the Woman of Honor, the Ring of Honor. Women's World Championship tournament. You're in it.
Yes, I'm in it. It's just a new revamp, and I'm very, very excited to be a part of this. It means a lot to me to be able to be a part of this tournament specifically. Around the time where I was really starting to figure out who I am as a performer, I would watch like a lot of the Ring of Honor, talent. I would watch Samoa Joe, I'd watch Bryan Danielson and Jonathan Gresham, Jay Lethal, and just try to soak in as much of that as I could. And that was where I was like learning about how to work body parts and how to like, just work crowds and how to feed off of that energy. It's just such raw energy watching their product. And so to be able to be a part of their family, they consider me family. It's interesting. I never thought that something like this would be possible. It's very wonderful to be a part of this tournament with such lovely women as well. Like I'm across from Holodead and Nicole Savoy, just trailblazers in our community. So.
Well, not only that, to be kind of welcomed as a part of that fold, that somebody had to recruit you to be like, hey, if we're calling together some of the most, best women out there, Trish Adora's name's on that list. Somebody get her, as a part of this, and that adds overall prestige to the entire, thing that's brought us all together. So I think it's an awesome thing as well.
And is the Ring of Honor dojo being invited to that? Is that what brought you back from Florida to move back to DC? Is that
yes.
kind of what
they had a seminar. And I had $300 left, right? So it's either I can and funny enough, my account was like $250 in the negatives. So I'm like, all right, what am I doing with this 300? Do we, get our account back right, or do we run off one more time just to do this one quick thing?
Run off one more time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, the choice was easy,
I'll
right?
pay that some other day,
Hey,
it's not going to go anywhere.
Later, another time. So I done the seminar, and they were like, all right, yeah, we invite you back. And I was like, I'll be right back. And so,
and you were still living in Florida.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I went back to Florida, and I was like, all right, see y'all. It's been great. All right, I'm out of here.
I'm going home.
Yeah.
Wow.
So very, very happy to have, and funny enough, too, that happened at such an interesting time in my life. I was going through such a funny transition with just how I was feeling about just me in general and just being on the indies in Florida, which was such a, man, Florida indies they have a reputation, I'll say that. And I'm thankful to make it out relatively unscathed, honestly.
It's a Wild West.
It feels like the Wild West.
So that's from a promoting standpoint and talking indies, that's the unfortunate result of not having an athletic commission. I believe. It's one thing over the years I used to hate the Maryland State Athletic Commission. But now I appreciate it for that. I appreciate and understand as an older, more experienced wrestling promoter that the good in it is that they prevent anybody from just opening up a wrestling promotion and renting the local fire hall and just having like the Wild West.
Yeah.
So I think it's checks and balances with states with athletic commissions, and like New Jersey's another, like a state that was kind of deregulated and doesn't have them. But I think that's kind of one of the downfalls, because you hear about like a lot of states like that are just Wild West. There's no.
New Jersey doesn't have one?
No, they deregulated. Just remember, that was like big news.
Yeah, I remember. Because I remember they must have had one because I was licensed as a referee in New Jersey, of all places.
Remember, like the
After I had my
Headbangers
neck
did
surgery.
something with the governor of New Jersey when they
with
deregulated. It was a big
Whitman.
thing.
All
Yeah.
right, now I'm
When they actually
remembering.
officially deregulated it
Okay.
as a sport, or
And I mean,
stopped
Karen,
acknowledging
the
it.
majority of my blood and guts and glass and
Yes,
stuff
that-
happens
yes.
in New
All right.
Jersey. I've been known.
This is true.
Yeah, so
I forgot about that. Yeah.
that's a great call out though, Dan. Without a state athletic commission to regulate, then the
it's-
inmates can kind of run wild, and it can appear to and feel like the wild west.
I've had my frustrations with them over the years. Obviously, we talked a lot through the pandemic of like the really big frustrations I have. I felt like we should have been up and running 3 or 4 months before we were, and the athletic commission was ultimately the one making the final decision, which held us back. But I would still, even after all that, I would still rather have them than not have them, because I think the same thing could happen here where we are, based in the state of Maryland, where, if we didn't have them, then anybody that wanted to get a ring and, call up a fire hall or a, you know what I mean, and rent a building, and then it just kind of, you know, I don't know, it ends up hurting.
One thing they've come around on is their tolerance of intergender wrestling, which for years was just a huge no-no. We can't do that. And I remember being in some intergender matches a long time ago, and you know, we always had to be mindful that only the females were in the ring together and only the males were in the ring at the same time together. You could do a spot here and there, but you couldn't tag in the male, and you know what I mean? Like,
so to get down to the nitty-gritty of that too, which is what I, you know, being a wrestling promoter for 20 some years and in the business 30, the reason that is because when they always go back to the rule books, but the rule books are archaic,
Right.
you know? So I'd always have, I mean, the amount of meetings over the last 30 years that I've had with the Maryland Athletic Commission, I don't even know. But I would say those rules were written back when they even kayfabed the athletic commissioners.
Yeah.
That's when those rules were written. So those rules were so archaic that they were written at a time that everyone in the business, even if it was NWA, they kayfabed the commissioners. They tried to make the commissioners believe it was real. So the heels and the baby faces came into the Baltimore arena separately, and they stayed in separate locker rooms. So that's when those times, because in those same rulings, in those same books, I would always say, when they'd say, well, this rule and that rule, and I said, yeah, but that rule also says, like, anyone even touches a referee, it's a year suspension of their license.
And do you know how many times?
How many times have referees gotten bumped, right? On a pro wrestling show in Maryland.
Right.
The other rule is that if you jump off, if you even go to the second rope and jump off on another wrestler, it's like $1,000 fine. So, like, then everybody should be getting fined $1,000 in every match. So, like, but they would pick and choose the rule, and that's selective enforcement of rules. And I would always use that terminology with them and say, that's like, you guys got to understand, all of these rules are archaic because they were written in the 50s when the commissioners at the time probably weren't even sure if it was a shoot or not.
Yeah, they thought
so
it was
like
right.
it's time to like rewrite
a little bit,
and rewrite all the rules for professional wrestling, knowing what we all know now. You know, so that's the crazy thing about that rule book.
Do you find that in other states too? Like, you've had several intergender matches, so do you find that that's something that is a barrier in other states as well, or are promoters not willing to do that necessarily? Or,
well, there are a few places that I know for sure. They either don't book women or they don't book any intergender, you know. So it's very much like, oh, hey Trish, yeah, we have a show, but we don't have anything for you. I'm like, all right, no problem, you know. So I mean, I just kind of keep it moving. There's so many places to work. I'm not gonna slow down for somebody that doesn't really understand what I'm trying to do, you know. So, I don't know. I find that in DC and Maryland, the places where I've had licenses, they've been pretty chill overall about like intergender or not. So
that's good.
Yeah, as of a couple years ago, probably right around the time you started, even before, like, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't even consider it. Like, they wouldn't even let me.
And we'd have to beg to have a spot.
And if I do a girl, like even a girl valeting, doing like a little spot, get involved, I'd be getting my butt reamed out. They'd be pulling me aside and like, you had that girl touch that guy, and it's like, come on.
I mean, even with me as the announcer, sometimes Lou Levy would be like, "Did you take a bump?
Yeah.
Did you take a bump?"
Wait a minute. I've been spanked a lot on shows for you through the years.
Yeah, you have.
And then
wait a minute. How come that was okay?
Then that incident happened with Renee, and then that incident happened with Renee. Michelle, do you remember that? We talked about it when she did the podcast.
Yeah. And,
it was like she was just in the business.
Yeah, and she was.
And she had a thong on.
I
Christian York
did for that.
He spontaneously did a spanking spot. She didn't know. She was like wasn't even a fan of wrestling. She had on this very thin thong. So she ends up getting spanked. Her skirt comes up, and it appears that she's not wearing any underwear.
That's what it was.
Because it was like a string.
Because it was a string that had disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And the commission frickin' lost it on me.
You've got a naked one.
They thought I had a naked, they thought I had like I was doing nudity, and it wasn't.
For the kids.
Always wear shorts under
Yeah.
your dress. The little boy shorts. Always. I
Yeah.
always have them in my bag. But
Well, we have come a long way in the state of Maryland and in the nation as a whole.
So do you have like a list in your mind of what other promotions that you want to work for? Because you are still pretty new in the business. Like, I know some people, it was Leo, right? Who had like the board of 25 places that he wanted to work and he would just wipe them off as
Goal
he
setting.
got there.
Goal setting,
Do you have something similar? Like, who's next on your list of targets?
Well, so yeah, I have like a revolving list. There's an opponent list. There's a promotion list. There's a place that I would want to go. Like I'm very much into going back to the UK.
Okay.
I want to go back to Japan as well. Before the pandemic, I was supposed to debut in Canada for C4, but
Oh,
Wow, that's amazing.
everything got turned around.
yeah.
So have you wrestled in Japan?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
I wrestled at Kurikan Hall.
Did you really?
Yes.
That's awesome, but like, look at that.
Yes.
Your trajectory is I want to go back to Japan, and where was the other place?
The UK.
The UK, and then comes Canada. Most U.S. based
Yeah.
wrestlers get to Mexico and Canada because they're right on top.
They're
you know?
attached.
But you're like I was almost in Canada after doing Japan and the
Yeah.
UK. That's kind of
I know. Like, what? I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like, you did it in Japan. You
Yeah.
worried about going to Canada.
Jurgen Hall. Yeah.
Canada's still on your list. Okay.
Yeah.
What about like domestically? Any place nearby? Like any? Where do you want to find yourself?
Let's see. I like personally setting my goals super high and being extremely ambitious. I like whenever I say something, people go, "Oh, you want that?" I'm like, "Yep, I want that." Just because you made that face, that's exactly what I want. So, to work for like PWG and to debut and like
Yeah.
to break barriers and those kinds of companies,
You
you
will
know.
definitely be wrestling for PWG before long because PWG is all about that kind of shock of the top indie people that you see all over the place. And it's almost like it's like your last stamp of approval. Like, this person's about to, really take off
Break
into
through, right.
to the stratosphere. Leo, I remember Leo and Keith Lee both came to PWG around the same time before they went on. I just saw Myron Reed and a few others just debuted. Chris Dickinson debuted over there.
So they're up and running again.
Again, yeah.
Yeah.
PWG.
Yeah,
They've
but-
been up for a little while because California was really one of the strictest lockdown.
Still is. To my,
Right,
yeah.
it still is.
And I
So,
don't know
so
how
they're allowing. They are doing. Are they? Fans?
And it was crowds. Yeah, it was a crowd.
Yeah.
Gresham was over there. Lee Moriarty, who we're going to talk about shortly, just made his debut there. So I have no doubts. Just seeing others that have kind of been on that, trajectory that you're on right now, and then kind of go to the PWG and do their deal. So I'm sure there'll be a mystery vortex or one of their staple shows that you're a part of. But I want to talk about another staple show that you were a part of, and that's the one that's displayed on your shirt right now, Iwtv 100.
Yes.
A huge deal for, again, we talk about Fight TV as a streaming service, IWTV as a streaming service, but this was IWTV's, what was it,
100th episode.
100th episode of original content on the streaming platform, and they had an amazing just main event. I mean, I actually don't even know about much else that happened on the show, but I do know that main event poster, and we talk about like the Hogan and Slaughter, Hogan and Andre. Tell us about that main event that you were a part of at IWTV 100, the participants and how it went down.
Yeah, so me and Lee Moriarty tagged up to face Chris Statlander and Orange Cassidy, and it was so cool.
So that's like two AEW stars that I don't want to say were loaned out by Tony Khan, but obviously they're contractually obligated to the All Elite Wrestling division, and here they are appearing on IWTV 100 against you and Lee Moriarty in the main event.
Yes. So they were former champions as well. And so was Lee. So I was the only person in the match that was not a former champion. But we're working on that. But it was really cool to be a part of that and just in that atmosphere and in that world. IWTV has been very instrumental in my growth, being able to have my matches, my content somewhere. I just finished up the Life of episode.
Oh, those are awesome on IWTV. Fans,
so-
if you don't know IWTV, subscribe. It's you can do a free trial, but you can watch all type of pro wrestling content, including that, the Life of. So
Yes, and then use code Afro-Punk. If you're new to IWTV, use code Afro-Punk, please. But yes, to be a part of that was like really, really cool. I tried really hard not to just get swallowed up in that moment too, because I'm looking across and I see Chris Statlander and I saw all that she was able to do over the years and just trailblazing in every company she's been in. Just tough as nails and just such a class act too. So to stand across from her and, at the end, to feel that handshake from her, I was like, all right, cool. All right. So it was a feather in the cap, so to speak, for me. I feel very good about it overall.
4 class acts, if you ask me. I'm just getting to kind of get to know Lee Moriarty. I've only had the pleasure of announcing him once. I've actually never announced you, and you were definitely on my list. I just got to talk to Jerry or somebody from IWTV land to get hooked up with you. But just 4 class acts: Orange Cassidy, Chris Statlander, Trish Adora, and Lee Moriarty, and I highly recommend the match. I only got to catch the end of it. I'm always catching the end of things when they're live, and then you got to wait for it to be re-uploaded. But yeah, that was a huge deal in the internet wrestling community and the wrestling community to have that caliber of a match on a streamed platform, which is the future. If you ask me, TV's gonna go the way of the dodo eventually. We're just gonna be streaming, So
I've had cable in years.
Roku is my best friend, Yeah.
Roku, yeah,
If
for sure.
if I can't make it automatically appear on my TV, I'm not watching it.
Yeah, that's facts.
My mom recently moved in with me, and she's like, "Where is the cable remote?" I'm like, "Oh, we don't have that here." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "No, it's all in the TV, Mom."
Yep.
And she's like, "Well, how do I watch it?" No, Mom, just it's. We're working on that,
And that's the way it's gonna be with wrestling.
Yeah.
I
in general, I haven't cut cable yet, but I don't watch it.
They make it easy to
Right.
cut it
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
Well,
I don't-
because they keep charging you so much for it.
Yeah.
That made it
Right.
really
Yeah.
easy to cut it. But all right, so we've got your wish list of companies you want to work for. Opponents? Who would you like
That's a
to
great one.
have as your opponents?
First is Sumi Sakai.
Okay.
Yeah, that's up first. I trained with her a
Legend.
little bit at the Worldwide Dojo, and I'm just in awe of everything that she does. I think that she is just so kind and so giving, and well, I don't want to word it like this, but I feel like in wrestling, there's the amount of people that are extremely kind and good people, and they're also amazing individuals in the ring, and just the ratio of that is sometimes a little off, and more often than not, I've found that she's an ally, and she supports me, and that feels good, and I'd be happy to punch her in the face. No, I'm kidding. No.
I love that.
I'll tell you one thing, Simi, because of all of her experience, she actually, and I don't mean this in the terms of like she'll hurt you, but she's a dangerous wrestler.
Yes.
I have seen her in some really MMA style battles, real kind of like on the ground grappling. And I've seen her inflict a lot of damage over the years at whether it be JPW or wherever. So I would be down to see that clash, let me tell you. Yeah.
Anyone else on your list?
Let's see. You know what? Funny enough, last year for Black Label Pro, I was supposed to wrestle Jonathan Gresham.
Oh, that would be good.
And the show didn't happen. The show did not happen. And they had run up since. What I mean to say is they had started running shows again since, and just hadn't got around to that. But that would be a really, really interesting match for me. I've watched hundreds of Jonathan Gresham matches, just trying to wrap my mind around like wrestling and what happens in the ring and how it makes sense. So
he's one of the best out there right now. And if I said at the Tony Deppen match, the way that he was stretching, you, and that was like very painful for me to watch sometimes. I don't know if I could take a Jonathan Gresham Trish Adora match because I would have to cover my eyes, and some of what he can do to the human body is just out of this world, and that real British grappling style that he's kind of mastered. I would love to see you two tangle. Have you ever fought Kimberly?
I have.
Okay.
I have, yes. We wrestled at the GSW Pro show Global Syndicate. It was up in New Jersey maybe about a month and a half ago.
Okay.
It was in a women's tournament, actually.
Well, I'm going to have to track that one down on one of the streaming platforms.
She's with Impact now, isn't she?
She's with Impact now, yeah. Her and a few
She's
others.
former MCW Women's Champion.
That's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was great.
And have you ever fought Lee?
Lee Moriarty?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, yes. That was for Battle Club Pro this year, too. There have been some really cool matches that I've been able to have. You know, I ended up tagging with Jazz. We were originally supposed to have a singles match, but we ended up tagging. She's on her way out, having her little retirement
farewell tour.
Yeah,
But
so.
that sometimes isn't a farewell. I had Togo
The
back
old
in
wrestling farewell.
you know, and
Isn't Jazz running her own promotion too? Is she doing her own promotion?
I believe so, and I know she's also working, I believe, with Mission Pro as well.
So
down in
maybe
Texas.
that's what I heard. But that's Thunder
Rosa as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe that's what I heard. Like she's working.
Yeah, I believe she had a couple of seminars as well. So.
Yeah. Yeah, she's something else too.
yeah.
Jazz.
Mhm.
All right. Well, hold on. I want to ask real quick. I just got back from Texas, and we had a intergender match that kind of main evented the ICW event. ICW being the chains, the wrestling that happens within the chains,
Yes.
all hardcore, all deathmatch style. Your thoughts on La Reina Extrema Sadiqa? You know of this competitor?
Yeah. She's crazy. No,
Educate
she's
me.
crazy.
Who's that?
Stan, I've never seen anything like this woman. She's a luchadora.
Phenomenal.
She's really great. She fights for real. Once the bell rings, she starts really wailing on, especially if it's a man that she's fighting. And I guess that what I can now glean after announcing 2 of her main event matches, she comes out with the Mexican flag. She is not going to have her country disrespected, especially I think when it's against man, by having her get beat down. So she beats the ever living piss out of whoever she's across the ring from, to the point that her opponent this past, when we were in San Antonio, was so frustrated because he couldn't keep her down, and essentially she was kind of embarrassing him to the point that he had to really start wailing on her.
What?
I'll show you. I'll
Yeah,
share
send me
some of
that.
this with you at Iwtv. No Holds Barred 17 from San Antonio, Texas. Main event was the Duke of Hardcore, John Wayne Murdoch. Iwtv 2020 Wrestler of the Year. I would think that you're probably up there with the contendership for 2021 after the year you've had. But he fought Sadiqa from Zona 23 in Mexico, and the match just totally went off the rails.
Ooh.
And
I bet it did.
so what would you do? Because I'm thinking to myself as I'm
Does she
watching
wrestle
her.
women like this too? Does she do that when she wrestles women, or is it only when she's in an intergender match?
I feel like I don't notice. I mean, I think it's all like balls to the wall.
I think that when
Very
she wrestles,
stiff and all
when
that.
she
no matter
wrestles
what.
women often leave.
Really?
She
Are you
fought,
serious?
so she fought Kimberly at one of the previous ICW events, and the match didn't go for much long before Kim was like, "I'm over it. That's it. You guys can have this. I'm not fighting."
She split.
Yep, left the cage, left it, and crowd started booing. But Kim was like, "It's not worth it.
Oof.
This is not worth it."
Really?
And the visible frustration out of John Wayne Murdoch when he was trying to, like, we all understand wrestling. We all
She's just
understand.
not doing
She's
business.
just not doing business. Just not selling anything. Like, I mean, I'll show you some
Yeah, I
footage,
gotta
man.
see.
Yeah, I'll show you some footage. But
All right,
and it was-
we're gonna look at that.
Yeah.
We
As
take
the
our-
promoter, I can't imagine wanting to book that.
so the
Right.
promoter was like, as they were doing the Memphis Brawl part, just right.
It seems like there's no upside.
It seems like a liability.
A major
Really?
liability.
She tears buildings up,
Wow.
breaks
All right.
chairs.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we're
definitely.
gonna take our last
Big
break,
time
and then we'll
liability.
come back for our weekly
Yeah.
wrap up, and you're gonna show us some of these clips.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a break. We'll be right back.
Show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. You can pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Visit teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
And we are back here, MCW Cast, in studio with our guest, Pan-African World Champion, Diaspora World Champion, Trish Adora. It's always a mouthful to say the name of that title, you know.
I just let you do it. I'm like, man, that is a mouthful.
It really is. But it rings, and that's why I'm so glad that championship even exists and that we have the world champion in studio with us tonight.
I forgot to ask earlier, will you be defending that championship anytime soon that fans could check that out?
Let's see. This weekend I am not. There will be a couple of defenses in September. There's going to be one later on in the month. I'm supposed to be debuting for Southern Honor later on in September. So
real quick, and I know we're almost at the end where we're going to wrap it up. Who is the governing body that sanctions the matches for that world championship? I mean, is it just like any company approaches you like, hey, we want you to defend the belt, or do your championship commitments go through like a governing body that kind of gives you the yay or nay? Like, yes, you can go to the UK and defend that against Suge, or you can defend it in the Midwest against Jonathan Gresham, or how's that work if you don't mind revealing? Or
so I'm pretty much in charge of all of like my own like booking and trying to like get everything situated. I didn't realize how much of a chore that was until I actually got a piece of paper and started to like map everything out. And I'm like, oh, I get down to the bottom. I'm like, okay. And you turn it over and get down to the bottom. And you're like, oh. So it's a lot of work involved, but it's me reaching out to companies reaching out to me, or excuse me, promotions rather.
you need an agent.
I know, right?
Yeah. You need
Personal
an agency.
assistant,
Yeah.
For real.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I guess goings on in the world, the wild and woolly world of independent pro wrestling. You just mentioned was about Trish and where she's going to be. Southern Honor, you said, is your next.
Yes. That's later on in the month of September, rather. Later on this month, I will be at the 2300 Arena for. The 2300 Arena for day 2 of the Ring of Honor shows. So
that's
that,
right. That's Glory by Honor weekend, isn't it?
Yes.
That's right. Are these our first tapings, TV tapings with fans since everything was locked down?
I believe so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was one before. They had one at the UMBC event center.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The best in the world,
And
and
they
then
had fans
tapings
there.
that were fans there, but they're back on
But
road.
they're back.
Yeah.
Opening back up with fans.
And
Good.
that leads us to us in September.
That's
Because we got
right.
something going on in September. The Bruiser Strong.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Bruiser Strong Memorial Show.
Finally paying tribute.
That's right.
Rightfully
Properly.
paying tribute.
Proper.
Properly.
Yeah. With our,
Publicly
and
and
properly with our
to
fans, with
RJ.
RJ's fans, and
Right.
we want to see everyone in the building. September 17th is when it's going down.
Yeah, MCWProWrestling.com for details on
Yep.
that show.
You can buy your tickets there online, or you can also buy them at our authorized ticket outlet at Hideaway Collectibles on Holabird Avenue in lovely Dundalk. Not only can you buy tickets to all of our upcoming shows, including September 17th, but that is the destination for all of your Funko Pops and WWE collectibles, AEW. They've got those hard to find AEW action figures in there. Lots of really cool stuff and memorabilia. So check it out. They also do online ordering. So that's hideawaycollectibles.com. And there you go.
Yeah, just a quick tip about all those AEW figures that are coming out. If you guys want to get the most collectible ones, it's going to be the every brandy out of the series. They're going to be the rarest and most collectible ones.
Is
Really?
that intentional?
I believe, I'm just predicting this. Call me prognosticator
Okay.
or prognostication. I believe that it's going to be a rare kind of in the rarity of Brandy, former Eaton, WWE ring announcer, gone on to be one of the executives of the company, and here's her figure throughout each series that comes
Okay.
out. So grab those Brandy figures, y'all. I would say that's going to be the one.
And
All
real
right.
quick shout out to AEW. You mentioned them allowing to be in that main event with Trish.
Oh, sure, yeah.
From a wrestling promoter, what AEW is doing is just great for
Great business.
Great for professional wrestling. As a promoter, they've allowed me and MCW, and they continue to allow us to basically use talent if we want. They're
Yeah.
very open-minded about, and that's good for the business. They're turning people into television stars and then allowing them to kind of appear on independent shows to help independent shows draw. It's it feeds and helps the business as a whole.
Right.
Unfortunately, WWE years ago stopped allowing that. But what AEW is doing is, I really appreciate as a promoter and respect what Tony Khan and AEW are allowing that to happen because it helps the industry as a whole.
That's right. That's right. Ric Flair, AAA Mania was there. I remember seeing that after being released like a week ago. Also, here's a newsworthy thing. How about 71-year-old Jerry the King Lawler fighting Enzo in a casket match?
When's that happening?
It already happened.
Oh, it did?
I
Yeah.
missed that. Wow.
I mean, we know the King very well.
Is he 71 now?
71
Wow.
and still
He doesn't look like he's changed in 25
That's
years.
true.
Great guy, a great guy to work and do business with. We had we did
many
Lots
times. He was a
of many
former
times.
MCW champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He beat the Bruiser,
Right.
lost the title back to the Bruiser.
Yeah,
Right,
and
I
two great
remember.
matches.
Yeah,
You know,
just
that was
Jerry
They were like
Lawler's-
back-to-back
I can't
weekends,
believe
right?
he's 71. Yeah,
71. Yeah.
And a heart attack survivor.
Heart attack
Yeah.
survivor,
Like,
yeah. And
okay.
but I just think that things
Shout
like
out
that,
to the King.
Yeah, dream
Jeez.
match, a casket match though.
Are-
Out of all the things,
Wow. Like what?
like I
Where did that
Why?
happen at? Was that
oh god, I see
Just
so
some
many
indie
things,
show?
but it happened, and I think that it's newsworthy, noteworthy. So I wanted to
Yeah.
shout it out on the cast.
very
Wow.
good?
Yep, and I also want to shout out our special guest Trish Adora for
Yeah.
joining us this
Thank
week.
you so much for
Thank
coming in
you.
studio.
Thank you.
Pro
Do you
wrestling
have
y'all
any?
having me.
How can fans follow you? You want to throw out your
Yes.
handles there, please?
Yes. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Trish Adora 202. I also have a Facebook athlete page, Around the Way Girl, and I usually update that 2 to 3 times a week with all like my upcoming posters and things like that. So
Very good.
You have a bevy of them that you're accumulating, and I can see even more in the horizon for your future posters featuring you. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode for Dan McDevitt, MCW longtime promoter, and the heart of MCW, Tara. I'm Larry Legend. We'll see you next Tuesday right here for another edition of the MCW Cast.